So, you're stressed because your exam is soon. It's in 3 days' time. And the thing is, you never really liked organic chemistry. And you ended up missing that one class as well. And so the whole topic doesn't really make sense to you. But it's alright because it's an important exam and you're gonna...
I'm locked in. It's gonna be okay.
And so as you're walking to your desk to sit down and study, your foot slips and you end up like falling back on your bed with your phone in your hand.
What happened? I'm scrolling.
And you end up binge watching another Netflix show. And another whole day passes, and before you know it, there's only 24 hours left of the exam. You feel like crying, and as you do everything, you feel that impending sense of doom of the exam coming up, and you realize, shit, it's time to cram. The morning of exams, I'd always see like this clear divide. On one side, I see the organized students who'd known about this exam like months before it was even announced. They'd made like a half a year study plan and they were ready to crush this exam. They'd be chilling in like the corner, they'd be doing like their breathing exercises, because they were all set. But on the other side, there was me and the other students who'd have like our textbooks in hand and they were like pacing up and down trying to remember one more fact before we went in the exam hall, knowing that we were probably cooked. Yeah, obviously, ideally, we would study in advance. We do what the good students were doing. But the thing is, shit happens. Whether you just forget you're on vacation, or whether you're like plane got delayed, or maybe you're just lazy like me for a lot of the time, you might as well learn how to cram the correct way. So this is how you can cram for your exam in under 24 hours and still get the best results possible. Chapter 1, priorities. The number one mistake that students make when they cram is they try to go through the topic list in order and they decide to like cover all of it. That's a really bad approach, and it's the one I did when I crammed for a lot of the time. I'd go through like all the topics in order, and this would have been an effective way to study if every single topic would be tested in the exam in that order. But that's not what an exam looks like, right? You need to follow this cramming protocol. Your goal is to study the topics by the following rank. So firstly, you want to study your weakness, but something that's also the heavy exam weight. Then you want to study your weakness, but something that's lightweight in the exam. And then you want to study your strengths, that will be heavyweight in the exam. And then you want to study your strengths, that will be the lightweight in your exam. Things that have heavyweight in the exam basically means that they come up more often. They're gonna make up more marks. But as you can notice, you always want to focus on your weaknesses. If you focus on the stuff that will come up a lot and also things that you're weak at, you end up cutting down the amount of time that you need to study. We can ignore your strengths a lot of the time when you cram, because in an exam, where is it that you're losing marks? It's with your mistakes, right? And so even if we revise a lot of the time, we like to reinforce our strengths. We like to focus on our strengths. But if we follow the cramming matrix protocol, you can see that you have to focus on your weakness, even if it might not come up in the exam. Because the point is, if you don't know it, even if it's like a small amount, you're not going to know how to do it. And so the way to find your weaknesses, firstly, to use the traffic light system. Next to that same topic list, put like a dot of like either a red dot, a yellow dot, or a green dot. Kind of do a self-evaluation on what topics you know. So basically, I remember I'd be doing this with chemistry. Some of like the topic points, I wouldn't even know what they meant, so that'd be red. But some topics are crazy easy. Like it literally just be like describe the arrangement of solid liquids and gases. And so I know if we did the standard cramming, I'd have to still cover that topic like the same amount as all the others. But that makes no sense, because firstly, it's probably not going to come up that much, so it's a low exam weight, but it's also my strength. And so that's like on that list, it's like my fourth priority.
Yo man, quickly, since this new school year is approaching and it's getting closer and closer, you see like students around you, and maybe you as well, have that new kind of like new school year, new me type of thing going on. I'll get better grades, I'll blow my teachers away with like amazing homework, I'll have a brand new study routine, and I'm gonna get like perfect grades this year. And it's all nice and well to set these goals, but how do you know that this year will turn out any different? Do you even really have a plan for it? What is it that you will do to make the difference? And if you know in the back of your mind there's some doubt and discomfort about what I just said, then you should check out this 24-minute study masterclass that I made for free on how to become the best student in your class. It will give you a full breakdown on how to study, what makes like a top student, and basically everything that you'll need to succeed. So if you want to go into the new school year feeling refreshed and you want to give yourself the best chance to become the best student you can be, watch that video in full. The link is in the description and you'll be in for a treat. Anyway, back to the video.
Another way to find your weaknesses are to do past papers, and this is my personal favorite. I do a past paper and then I note down which topics I got wrong. And then I highlight that topic in another color. Then you end up having a list of your strengths and weaknesses. To find out whether like in the exam it's going to be a heavy or a lightweight. Some teachers already like tell you, apparently, like tell you like this is going to be tested more, so make sure to look at this more. But for my teacher, they never told us that. The way you can do this is just do past papers. Past papers are literally the previous year version of the same exam. So although the question like wording might be different slightly, the structure and composition will be the exact same. For my biology exam, there were so many topics, right? I think biology is like one of the sciences where it has the most amount of content. And if I tried to study all of them, I would have never been able to. But after doing like 5 past papers, you see that some topics like kidneys, protein synthesis always came up in every single past paper. And so I unconsciously found out that they're heavyweight exams. Whereas some topics like eye or coordination and response rarely ever came up. So I was able to structure my revision around those topics that came up heavily, like the nephrons and protein synthesis. You know when you have those moments in tests where you study a lot, but like that topic you spent like 7 hours studying just doesn't come up. The reason that this happens is because you're studying everything, including like the lightweight exams. And this is why past papers are so useful. You kind of get a roadmap. You kind of get to predict what topics will come up. And obviously this isn't like a decisive thing, but think of it like this. The analogy I like to use is the show Physical 100, which you guys might have seen on Netflix. And basically it's like a game show where physically fit people, as you can hear from the name, there's 100 physically like fit people, and they're trying to find like the number one physicallyest fit person, you know. And in the first season, like the very first season, people didn't know like what Physical 100 would mean, because physical is a very, very broad term, right? For a lot of people, some people thought it mean like lifting weights, like the heaviest weights, because that's physical. But also some people thought it would be like endurance, or some people thought it would be like jumping. There's so many different aspects to physical. So in season 1, there was like a wide array of people. But after like the first season happened, the show was actually a lot of endurance based. Like if you guys watch the show, there's a lot of like cardio and like, you know, stamina endurance, which is actually quite niche in the physical. But people like in season 2, so when they redid this again, they knew that. So like when they were doing the interview, like people were saying like they trained specifically cardio and like CrossFit, etc., because they realized that endurance would be a high heavy weight point of this competition. Exams are very, very similar. Although biology is very broad, there's actually only like a couple of main points that will actually be tested, and you can predict this. You have to like keep doing past papers over and over again, and then you really start to make up and like see the patterns of what topics are tested. And I promise you that like as you go through your topic list, firstly you can cross off topics that you know are very, very easy, or you know like regardless, for example like the easy topics I was talking about, and so you've already cut down your list of revision. From that, after you do one past paper, you can cross off your strengths. If with no revision you were able to get those right, oh that's your strength, you don't need to cover it, so cross out all your strengths, and suddenly you're left with a list that's only like half or maybe like a quarter or even less than that of topics that you know you need to focus on. That's like a blessing, because suddenly you've cut down the amount you need to study, and that's essential when cramming, because it's all about efficiency. Chapter 2, ignoring strengths. When cramming, you have to ignore the strengths. We touched upon this briefly, but you can use this further. If you were building a boat and there was like a massive hole in the bottom, but you were like focused on putting like better sails, like a better propeller, and you're like painting it, you're making it look all nice, that would be all pointless, because at the end of the day, that boat will sink because of that big hole at the bottom. Doesn't matter how good the boat looks, doesn't matter how advanced the sails are, because that one big hole at the bottom will make the boat sink. It's the exact same with exams. Exams is something where you want to lose as few marks as possible, right? So you have to drill your mistakes when cramming, because that's where you'll use the most marks. It doesn't matter how strong your strengths are, because your strengths will never outperform your weaknesses. An iron chain with one rusty link is as only as strong as a rusty chain. The best way to do this is to spam past papers, as we talked about, and then to compile a whole list of mistakes. So when I used to do my past papers, I used to like compile a whole list of mistakes, and then I let some time pass, and then I redo it again and again, because when you let some time pass, that's when you can really see how much you remember and understand. This is spaced repetition. Try them again, and if you get it right, amazing, you just made your weaknesses strengths. If you still get it wrong, amazing, you're able to see where your hole is in the boat. Imagine you weren't able to find the hole in the boat until the exam. That's terrible, right? People are really scared of making mistakes because it lowers your self-esteem when they're doing past papers and they get like 60%. But the more mistakes you make in the past papers, you should start to see that as something good, because that's one less mistake you'll make in the actual exam. Brain scans prove that students who spend time correcting mistakes exhibit more mental activity, and when you have to fight through a problem, more neural pathways are formed. Struggling to learn and making mistakes is what increases mental capacity. In the gym, it's not like the fun, like easy reps that gave you the muscles. It's like the last couple of reps where you're like failing, struggling, like you're making like weird noises, and like it really hurts. Like training to hypertrophy properly, like it really hurts, right? That's when you see muscle growth. You have to make the task and like past papers as difficult as you can so that you make mistakes, and then make sure to practice them. You're able to see where your mistakes are. And chapter 3 is understanding the concept. You have to grasp why the answer is why it is. You have to understand the overarching thought or concept. It's kind of like if you have the main picture, you can just trace over it. So ask yourself, what is the concept being tested, and how does it relate to the bigger picture? An easy way to do this is, as you do a question, change the wording of the concept so that another answer is correct. So what this means is, for example, in this question, what type of blood-like vessel transports blood into the heart? We know that the answer are veins, right? But then let's say in the question we change the word in into out. Suddenly you have to understand the concept to understand, like, even though it's like that one question, what is the reverse of that? Well, we know that if it was carrying blood away from the heart, it would be an artery. And so suddenly it's also testing your understanding by, when you're doing a question, you're changing the wording and thinking of it outside the box. These are things that will give you that extra points of knowledge, and it really tests your understanding. Make connections between concepts. Patterns, similarities, and differences. Trying to spot those are key. For example, like a really effective way of cramming is, instead of learning like double of everything, if you learn what happens when your lung inhales, you know how it exhales because it's just the opposite. Trying to find these patterns, similarities, and differences are how your brain is going to remember, and it's very efficient for cramming. Try to chunk your information together into chunks so that you have to memorize less. For example, if you memorize like food tests and like their respective colors individually, that's like 12 different things you have to remember. But suddenly, if you remember like the starting color and the color change all together, that's only like 3 different things you have to remember at once. Learning is simply just making connections to things that you already know. Once you know pressure, you don't have to relearn like ideal gases in physics or like the lungs or like nephrons in ultrafiltration, because they're all just pressure. And once you understand that one thing, you're able to understand all these different other things. Once you understand the relationship, you have that moment where it's like, oh, like it actually finally makes sense. That's the moment that we're trying to get for. And so with that, you should have no problem cramming for your next exam, even as little as like 24 hours. And I'm sure you do well. And by the way, if you found this useful, you probably like learning from me. And so if you want to get extra help, you might want to check out Student Accelerator, which is my program that helps students become the best that they can be in minimal time. So if you want to check that out, click the first link in the description. But as always, take action, and I'll see you next time.